Thank you for joining the Missing Half podcast, where we're discovering what's missing in manufacturing and B2B marketing. One of the things we like to talk about is the challenges that manufacturing marketers face and B2B marketers face whenever they're dealing with ownership, with the C-suite, and understanding how to capture all the ideas that are coming at them every day. And we all recognize the challenges of the annual budgeting cycle and the annual planning cycle, but then the other initiatives and ideas that creep into our process, that creep into our to-do list because someone sees an article, watches a video, or hears something at a trade show. And one of the things we have to recognize as marketing managers at manufacturing and B2B companies is that it's our responsibility to approach these ideas in a productive way that allows us to kind of save face and manage expectations, but also allows us to try new initiatives and see if there's something we can do that can actually help our organization grow. So one of our goals here at 50 Marketing through the Missing Half podcast and providing this resource to marketing and B2B marketing managers is that we want to provide resources and education that we wish we had back whenever I first started my career as a marketing manager in the early 2000s. We were dealing with the transition from traditional to the digital space and trying to manage that internal marketing department and deal with all of those changes. And it was a time of insane ideas because everything was brand new. And this educational series for marketing managers is to help you have the resources and education you need to navigate these waters of dealing with the owners, the founders, and the C-suite as they barrage you with all of these new ideas and new initiatives that some of them need to be tested and some of them probably we just need to put in the parking lot and walk away from. So what's one of the major problems that you're going to face? Ownership, C-suite, sales managers, VPs all have a lot of competing ideas. They'll go to a trade show, they'll attend a conference, they'll watch something on YouTube, they'll hear from a colleague or a fellow business owner, and they'll have this constant flow of ideas of what is perceived to be working at other organizations. They'll also be looking at their competitors. Most C-suite and founders look at the top of the mountain companies, the Fortune 500 companies, the very mature companies. And this is what they aspire to be like. And they'll get all of these ideas from these sources of what their organization should be pursuing for marketing initiatives. And the challenge that we face in our space as marketing managers is that we have to really come up with a methodology, accepting those requests and considering them, but then also processing them and matching them to the proper prioritization that needs to occur to match our budget, our bandwidth, and to be handled with reasonable expectations, not only from the C-suite and from owners and management, but then how are we going to deliver that with the expectations we need to place on our internal teams and then possible outsourced agency resources. One of the biggest problems that many marketing managers face is that their management and C-suite really hone in on that market innovator that has an outsized budget, a much larger team, more experience, and more resources. And the good news is they want to emulate what success looks like. They see this as the proper positioning or the proper North Star that they want to head towards directionally. And we all need to be aspirational in our marketing initiatives and our goal setting and where we want to arrive, looking out on that horizon of what we want to achieve. However, when we back it up and really look at those tactics and the budgets that's necessary to accomplish that, we also have to provide that dose of reality to those groups. So what's the solution? How are we going to deal with this endless barrage of ideas that are going to come out at us as marketing managers? And how do we make sure we manage the process properly while keeping everyone happy or at least at bay in the process? So number one, the first thing we like to do whenever someone, even if it's a client, brings a new idea to us that we're currently not providing resources and capabilities on, is we listen really well to what the idea is. Then usually the second thing we do is we ask a very important question. Okay, we hear what the idea is, but what is the real goal? What are you trying to accomplish? We are able to get folks, whether it's our clients or whether it's your ownership or management to change from this is the thing we want to do to this is the goal we would like to set and then work towards and accomplish, it usually allows us to then reframe the discussion to make sure that also we don't maybe have a better idea or an alternative idea that could accomplish that same goal. So number one is listening. Number two is understand what the goal is. Three, we usually recommend that we then go away and educate ourselves on that, especially if we don't have expertise or knowledge in that newest, latest, greatest idea, and make sure we fully understand from a 50,000 foot view, the overview of what a scope would look like on that project. What is it really going to take to accomplish that idea? And what would the budget be? Because even if we know the goal and what they want to accomplish, if we don't know the budget and the scope of that project or what it's going to take, we won't be able to deal with number four, which is what's the return on investment going to be? If we identify, we listen, we identify what the project is, then we identify the goal, and then we identify the scope so that we can get the budget so we can determine whether it's going to have a good return on investment. Those steps will really allow us to then go back to management, owners, founders, whoever it is, or our clients, and present this not in the, here's what you asked, the idea, we understand it, here's what it's going to take to do it, here's how much it's going to cost, but then also really provide that cost-benefit analysis up front so that we can minimize the need to chase that shiny object if the resources and budget are not available to accomplish that goal. So the framework, it's relatively simple and straightforward. However, we've often found in our history with clients, and then as we see marketing managers struggle with this, they usually skip around like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yes, we can do that. Jump into it. And after we've already committed, then we find out that we're already extended on the budget, if there was one, or that we can't accomplish it, or we have to go to a third-party resource, an agency, or outsource the production or the delivery of this idea. And then we fall behind on timeline, and then everybody's upset, and we've missed the mark, and then there's a lack of faith, and then we start into the conversations of, marketing isn't hitting their goals, and we want to avoid those conversations completely. In a recent Missing Half episode, I sat down with Jeff Swartz, and we talked about geofencing. And this was a specific area that I think falls right into this conversation. So let's say management comes to a marketing manager and says, hey, we want to look at geofencing. That's great. If you have a chance, and you can find the link probably somewhere associated with this episode, you'll be able to see how we talked about, should we use geofencing? Well, it depends. And it depends on a number of factors. And is it a great match? Well, we'd have to look at the specific goals of why we would want to use geofencing. We'd have to understand the cost, and then we'd have to understand the return that could be expected based on what we're looking to do to evaluate whether that is exactly worth the effort or whether we should move on. Another area we can look at where we see this a lot is video. Clients will come to us. We talk to marketing managers who are hearing requests from their ownership or their management group that they want to enter the video space. They want video. We generally don't know what that means. Marketing managers don't know what that means. And the reality is the person asking that question most likely don't even know what video means. Now, we all know what a video is. You're watching one right now. But what we're talking about is what specifically in this idea of having video do we need to accomplish? And that's where we go back to step one, which is we need to listen and understand their idea. So when we talk about video, we talk about breaking it down into, is it top of the funnel attraction video? Is it explainer videos? Is it recruitment videos so you can recruit new employees? Is it more in the bottom of the funnel for sales enablement? And that's just kind of like the conceptual idea of the video. Then we have to look at formats and where's it going to be distributed? Is this going to be used for social media? Is this on YouTube? Is this in presentations? There's so many questions that need to be asked. When you look at video, then when we start talking about, after phase one, which listening to what they're really looking for and what their North Star or what success looks like, and then you move into that next phase, which is more of asking the question of what's the goal. Then, maybe it comes down to, after you listen, oh, well, really what we want to do is we want to attract new clients. Oh, okay. Well, then we need high funnel attraction videos. Can we get more specific about what type of clients, for what vertical, what's the buyer persona, what's their journey, what's going to help attract them with the problem solution presentation, or whatever the case may be. then we can start getting down into very specifics and understanding the production values and what needs to be done to accomplish that goal. When we then understand, the idea, when we understand the goal, and then we can maybe go away and do some research and figure out more about that type of video production. If we don't have that capability or resource in-house, we can maybe get some quotes or some ideas, then go back to ownership with a plan that also would hopefully, if you're working with an agency or someone who's done this before, could give you a relative idea what the return could be based on industry benchmarks of filming and producing and cutting a high funnel video and then spending X dollars promoting that through LinkedIn and YouTube to a targeted audience or whatever that framework would be to accomplish those goals and execute this idea within the realm of the scope and budget. So when we walk through those examples, we can see how presenting that to ownership, not as, hey, there's an idea I want you to go work on, but then kind of bringing it back around to, here's the idea, here is the goal, and then the budget and the return. I think this can be a useful model to help you really manage those expectations and not get caught in chasing shiny objects that are presented every day. For Fortune 500 companies and larger organizations, this is probably more of a common approach. But when we look at that mid-market that we serve, the 10 million to 150 million in revenue of late adopting manufacturing and B2B companies that need that digital transformation for marketing, we are often dealing with teams of 1 to 3 in the marketing function. And sometimes they don't even have the title of marketing. They're just in the function, not necessarily the title. They haven't been battle hardened or been bruised enough through processes that have caused them to have this, what do you want to call it? Maybe it's a survival instinct to not just accept every shiny object that management throws at them. So we feel this type of approach will help you as a marketing manager in that middle market when you don't have a large team to really make sure you're presenting to ownership or management a proper perspective so that we can prioritize properly where this fits in our marketing mix, our budget, and our priorities for the coming months or years. Another thing I think that we sometimes have to help our management and ownership understand is where we are positioned in the marketplace. If the asks and the ideas continue to materialize based on comparison with Fortune 500 companies and market leaders, we're going to get stuck in a perfect over progress model. We're always going to be shooting for a Super Bowl quality commercial and video or the most amazing social media experience that we probably can't accomplish with the internal team we have, the third-party resources we can afford, and with the experience we have. If we can allow our maybe a journey of understanding to occur where we take some time with our management and explain kind of our positioning, that we need to move from a perfect over progress to a progress over perfect approach. That will also help us to position ourselves properly in the marketplace, have a good self-view and self-awareness of where we are, and then recognize that we do want to, we know where we're heading. We have, we're all agreed on our North Star and the direction we're heading, but that we have to start on that journey. We can most likely create better expectations about our positioning and how we need to move forward. When I was a marketing manager, I often dealt with this because I had a number of VPs of different product divisions that would come to me with tons of requests and tons of ideas. And I heard this at the trade show, and I heard this from our competitor, and why aren't we doing this? And why aren't we doing that? And it becomes daunting. And you as a marketing manager need to do yourself a favor and start writing all these ideas on a list. And, we can be polite and we can understand office politics and the culture that we're in our environment. And we need to start using words like, yeah, we'll take a look at that and we'll definitely consider it as part of our planning. And we'll do the evaluation. It's on the list. If and then maybe call a meeting with all of those folks who are throwing those at you and say, hey, we want to come up with a prioritization of what we all feel is the most important. and then start working through it in a systematic way. If we, as marketing managers, do not put up the proper boundaries and maybe some roadblocks for the constant flow of ideas, we will be overrun by constantly chasing half-done and undoable tasks that will not help our organizations grow and be successful. So here's an example of how sometimes clients will come to us with these requests. They get an idea that comes from corporate or management or ownership, and it's a shiny object, and they want to pursue it immediately. So recently, one of our clients is a marketing manager at a manufacturing company that does approximately anywhere from $10 to $150 million in revenue, came to us with a question about their social media planning. They knew they wanted to penetrate the market with more advanced and aggressive social media content, and they were really running dry in their well of resources and opportunities to do so. So instead of just jumping right in and writing briefs and coming up with posts, we took a step back with this marketing manager, and we took a couple weeks and we came up with a plan. And we looked at what we listened to their idea and really understood then secondly what they really wanted to accomplish, what their goals were. And this was an important part of the process because they didn't realize or hadn't really articulated or written down all of their goals. But as we talked through it, we were able to extract their goals, and not only their primary goals, but some secondary goals that we could accomplish simultaneously with the program. And we were able to come up with a plan that was very succinct and very specific and address specific target audiences, buyer personas, and specific goal sets that were very important to several divisions of the company, not only their new client acquisition strategy, but reinforcing some of their current client communication, as well as attracting new clients in their employee retention strategy. All of these things were able to be accomplished by listening to the idea, by understanding the goal, by developing a plan and coming up with a scope, and then also by coming up with a budget that then the client looked at and we walked through understanding the return on investment and how we would handle some of the goals, some of them which we could directly attribute some of the activity to, some of them were a little more qualitative goals and more organizational goals as opposed to specifically like lead gen or new client attraction. But overall, we were able to use this framework to help that marketing manager prepare a plan, a strategic plan, a tactical plan, and a budget that they were able to communicate with the ownership group and really set the proper expectations so that as we won the approval and worked together with them to start implementing the process, that not only did we achieve what we had set out to do, but management all was expecting what we were delivering. So at the end of it, we helped them get clear on their goals. We helped them deliver exactly what we planned and found out was the best prescription for their situation. And the marketing manager got great praise from their team because part of it was we clarified the expectation of the ownership and management group so that they knew what we were going to be delivering and what they were going to be getting. So we feel that we've seen this process work. Not only, do I wish I knew more about this process back when I was a marketing manager, but it's a process we use every day with our clients whenever they come to us with new requests and ideas to make sure we're helping them have clarity around their goals and their new ideas that they present to us consistently. So thank you for joining us today for the Missing Half podcast. We wanted to really continue our series helping marketing managers make really good decisions, become educated on not only specific techniques and expertise, but also on the process of managing your department and managing your expectations of your organization. Once again, we're trying to provide the resources we wish we had and the processes we wish we knew about back whenever I started as a marketing manager back in the early 2000s. And so hopefully we're sharing some of that knowledge, some of those experiences, and that will help you do a better job and accomplish your goals this year.